A huge victory for President Trump on the eve of an all-important debate. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, believe me, there was a ton of news over the weekend, but none bigger than potentially, the historic decision made by Judge Juan Merchan. If you remember, he is the hack Democrat judge. He really is a Democrat activist posing as a judge, masquerading as a judge in the Alvin Bragg book records keeping case, where the judge preposterously allowed the case to go on, and a rabid partisan jury in Manhattan, and as I talked about on the show many times, that area in Manhattan went nearly 100% for Biden against Trump. It was a setup. And they found him guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records. A complete travesty of justice. Everybody was waiting for September 18. Why? Because that was going to be the all-important sentencing date, and most people, including Trump's inner circle, were expecting Judge Juan Merchan, who really is nothing more than a puppet of Merrick Garland, the corrupt Department of Justice, and the entire Democratic Party and Democratic elite. He is Biden's and Kamala Harris's boy doing their dirty work. And so the expectation was almost a certainty. In fact, Merchan has been telegraphing it now for months, that he was going to put Trump behind bars. At a bare minimum, he was going to put Trump under house arrest in Mar-a-Lago with an ankle bracelet, making it impossible for him to campaign, and branding him officially as a convicted felon who now is under house arrest. Most likely, though, in fact, they were even getting a cell ready for him at Rikers. They were going to put him behind bars. This all changed in a stunning move Friday afternoon. Judge Juan Merchan stunned the liberal media, stunned the left. They cannot believe it. They are thunderstruck. He now has come out and said he is going to postpone sentencing until after the election, i.e. on November 26. So basically 3 weeks to the day after November 5, the official election, election day this year. So Trump now, there's no other way to put it, has won a huge, significant victory for two reasons. Number one, so much of the lawfare strategy, and it is clearly lawfare, and we now even know from within the Department of Justice itself, there's explosive audio that has now come out, I'm going to play it, where they admit that the whole thing was a political setup to get Trump. That this would not happen to anyone else but Trump. That the indictment, the conviction, was politically motivated from the outset. Okay, but let that go for now. The goal of the lawfare against Trump was, one, to get that all-important photo, that all-important image of him in an orange jumpsuit or him in an ankle bracelet, believing that this would tank his numbers in the polls, turn away moderate voters, suburban women, maybe more moderate or Nikki Haley Republicans. In other words, to really destroy his image with key voting blocks, thereby tilting the election decisively to whoever the Democrat was. Joe Biden at the time, now Kamala. That is not going to happen. That is not going to happen. And that now throws a massive monkey wrench in their plans. And number two, and let's be very clear about this, the other benefit of putting Trump behind bars was because A, it would take him off the campaign trail, i.e. direct election interference. You jail your political opponent in the midst of a campaign. And B, you have him assassinated. There was already one assassination attempt by a radical, deranged Democrat with all of the rhetoric out there, straight from Joe Biden, straight from Kamala Harris, spewing out like a toxic cesspool day after day from the entire corrupt, elite establishment, get Trump media. They want him dead. And putting him in prison would give them a golden opportunity to do to him what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and others. In other words, he just hung himself. We don't know. Somehow, the shame of it all, he's just hanging from a ceiling with a bedsheet tied around his neck. Now, all of this is off the table, at least leading up to the election. And so what this signifies to me, now there are different competing theories, and I'm going to go through some of them, but what this signifies to me, because many of you may say, Jeff, why did they call off the attack dogs? Everything was now set up for Merchan, Judge Juan Merchan, that hack, to deliver the hammer blow. So why at the last possible minute did they blink? It was a game of chicken, and they blinked. Why? This is my theory, and you may disagree with me. I'm just calling it the way I see it. It seems to me that the decision now by Juan Merchan to postpone sentencing until after the election is because they know Kamala Harris is going to lose. They know she's going to lose, and they understand now that if they were to go to if they were going to go ahead, well, they can also go to hell, but let that go. If they were going to go ahead and sentence Trump to either prison or home confinement with an ankle bracelet, it would be obvious, blatant, in-your-face election interference. It's obvious. The world would scream bloody murder. Never mind the American voter and the American public. And that every time they've waged lawfare against Trump up to this point, every single time, Trump has gotten stronger and stronger and gotten a huge boost in the polls. In fact, I believe it's almost divine intervention. In some ways, the Democrats are the ones who are now responsible for reviving and rehabilitating Trump and essentially now catapulting him into the White House. Because remember, if you just go back 4 years, Joe Biden had stolen the election. You had the what happened on January 6th. If you look at the polls, in early 2021, Trump was at his nadir. Everybody thought Trump was politically washed up and finished. And then what happened? The Democrats couldn't help themselves. And they attacked Trump. And then they kept harassing Trump. And then persecuting Trump. And then suing Trump. And then trying to bankrupt Trump. And then trying to destroy his business. Even though he was in political exile, they couldn't let him go. And then they began to drudge up these ridiculously fabricated, manufactured hit cases against him, legal assassinations on absolutely bogus charges. And every time they went after him, whether it was on the stolen documents case, whether it was on January 6th, whether it was the raid on Mar-a-Lago with shoot-to-kill orders, beyond preposterous, frankly disgusting and obscene, the Georgia case, the E. Jean Carroll case, the Letitia James case, on it went until, of course, Alvin Bragg. The country said, this is the weaponization of our legal system to go after and destroy the political opponents of the Biden-Harris regime. Trump got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Every indictment he got up in the polls. Every persecution, he went up in the polls. So they, in some sense, and of course Trump's incredible tenacity, toughness, resilience, that goes without saying, but they, in some ways, are the most important factor in the resurrection and the political revival of Trump. And now he is at the gates of victory. And so they suddenly realize, with him now, again, big New York Times poll just came out. In a popular vote, Trump beats Harris. New York Times Siena poll, Trump beats Harris. In the battleground states, the Electoral College, Trump destroys Harris. They now realize that if they were to put him behind bars or under house arrest, it would be such blatant election interference, the country would revolt, and it would catapult Trump into the White House with a smashing landslide victory. And so now they have one play left. One play left. And that is the debate tomorrow, and of course, the election steal. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, my friend, so huge news. I cannot overstate how important this decision is. Why? Because many of us, rightly so, were very concerned about Trump perhaps being killed in prison, murdered in prison, or that he would be tarred as a convicted felon behind bars with that infamous mugshot. That's what they wanted. Him, in jail and in an orange jumpsuit, being, dragged along in frog chains. And that image perhaps collapsing or cratering his poll numbers. Maybe, what is it? 6 weeks before the election. So, by Judge Juan Merchan's decision now to postpone sentencing until after the election, Trump will now be sentenced on November 26th. It also gives Trump's legal team more time to make grounds for an appeal, and they will win that appeal. There's no question he's going to win that appeal. But the point is, in the immediate short term, the Democrats' strategy of lawfare has now effectively blown up. It is now, Trump will not be sentenced to jail before the election, which means to me, and you may read this another way, I'm just giving it to you the way I look at the evidence. They now believe that Trump is going to win. And if they went to put him behind bars, it would so inflame the passions of the country. It would so incite opposition that it would lead to a landslide for Trump. That they realize now, we're just going to make him too strong. It's too obvious. It's too blatant. It's too in your face. It is such obvious direct election interference. We're going to jail the leading presidential candidate, who now is leading in the New York Times Siena latest poll and other polls now, not just in the popular vote. He's going to win over 300 electoral college votes if these poll numbers hold up. It would blow up in the Democrats' face, and they know it. And they know it. So now, this is what's at stake for them. This is now the only path the Democrats, I think, see to victory. Tomorrow night, the one, and I believe it will be the only debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. She will not do a second debate. She will not do a third debate, which to me tells you everything you need to know about how empty, vacuous, and pathetic Kamala Harris is as a presidential candidate. Honestly, I've never seen this in my life. Usually you always have 3 presidential debates. Okay, minimum 3. At least 2, for God's sake. But always minimum 3. Sometimes 4, 5, 6 presidential debates. But always minimum 3. This woman can barely muster, and they're all 2 hours, or at least they were. She can barely muster 90 minutes on the most rabid of all the anti-Trump networks, ABC News. So tomorrow night's debate becomes now even more important. And I believe it's going to be one of the most consequential presidential debates this country has ever seen. If Trump, he doesn't now even have to go for a knockout. If Trump just comes in with a good, forceful strategy and starts to attack Kamala and begin to expose her for the charlatan that she is, for the liar, the flip-flopper, the political opportunist that she is, and of course, for her radical left-wing core. And that's what she is. She is a radical leftist. Make no mistake about it. If he does that, it's over. It's over. I mean, this election is over. Except for one thing. And that is the steal. So what this shows to me is that the Democrats are clearly going to try to steal it in November, that voter fraud and election corruption is now their only potential path to victory. Now, there is another theory, and a lot of you share it, I know, because so does Grace. And here's exactly what Grace told me last night, in fact, over dinner. She believes it signals the very opposite. That the decision by Judge Juan Merchan, along with Hunter Biden pleading guilty, is now a sign that the Democrats are convinced that they've already stolen the election in November. That it's over, that they're going to steal it, that they have enough of an election fraud network in place to effectively take this thing from Trump, and so call off the attack dogs. There's no reason now to inflame Trump supporters, incite them, get them on the streets, get people all angry, all worked up, because it's going to be worse for them on November when they steal it. In other words, they're so confident now that they can steal this from underneath the nose of the American public that they feel it's not necessary anymore to put Trump in jail. And so that theory is, it's the opposite, Jeff. Because remember, Juan Merchan answers to his masters. He's not his own man. This is an activist judge who does the bidding of the Democratic National Committee and of the Biden-Harris regime. And so rather than being a white flag of surrender, what this really signifies, according to this theory, is that the election is already stolen. It's in the bag. 6:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, so let me set it up for the whole audience for Kuhner Country, and I want to start taking your calls. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. So, huge decision, a massive victory for Trump. There's no getting around it. The sentencing now that was scheduled by Judge Juan Merchan in the falsifying business records case that Trump was, convicted on by that partisan, rabid, frankly ridiculous jury. Well, now it has been delayed. It was supposed to take place September 18, 6 weeks before the election. It would have been blatant direct election interference. The judge is now going to send him to jail. In fact, it's obvious. The fact that he even suspended or delayed the sentencing, postponed it, if he was just going to give him probation and some kind of a fine or a slap on the wrist, which is what normally happens when you're dealing with a first-time convicted defendant who's had no prior convictions for a non-violent offense and a petty white-collar crime. I think all of it was bogus, garbage. But let's just say you take everything on the merits. He didn't even defraud a company. He didn't defraud a pension fund. He it was the wrong ledger. He put certain payments to Stormy Daniels in a wrong ledger. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, so we're talking about an absolute absurdity of a case, and even if you grant on its merits, should not have you do a single day in prison. Well, Judge Juan Merchan came out on Friday saying, if I'm to impose a sentence on September 18th, it will be viewed and perceived by at least half the country, if not more, as direct election interference. Well, if it's just probation and a fine, which is what would normally happen in a case like this, you know, Trump's age, he's in his late 70s, first-time offense, it's a nonviolent offense, it's an accounting offense, a white-collar offense with no victim. There is no victim in the case. None. Nobody was defrauded. Nobody lost their money. Nobody lost their jobs. Nobody lost their pensions. Every legal expert has said there's no way this justifies spending a day in jail. Well, it's obvious. Merchan wants to throw the book at him. He wants him to go behind bars, to go to jail. So they blinked. They have now decided to postpone the sentencing. What that says to me, without a shadow of a doubt, they can't win. They know now that Trump is going to win in November. This is, to me, a sign of weakness by the regime, that they fear that this will skyrocket Trump's poll numbers, with him already beating Kamala in the polls, and that this would just be a bridge too far. And so now everything rests on the debate tomorrow, which I agree with so many of you, it's going to be rigged. They've given her the questions ahead of time. Her long hair is going to enable her to cover up an earpiece. She's always now with earbuds, white earbuds and earpieces everywhere she goes. So, they're going to be feeding her the answers, and they're going to have hostile moderators against Trump. They're going to do everything they can to salvage and help her and prop her up. But the point is, tomorrow night's debate now becomes even more important. And then I think it's the steal. I think from this point forward, what they're really saying is, we just have to steal it in November, period, full stop. Now, as I finished my last segment, Grace disagrees. My wonderful wife, Dr. Grace, and many of you disagree. What many of you and Grace believe is, for them to now postpone sentencing is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It's like Hunter Biden having pled guilty. In other words, we're going to give him a pardon, and he's going to walk away scot-free, and he and the Bidens will ride into the sunset. Nothing will happen to them, and big middle finger to the American people. As for Judge Juan Merchan, what they've now concluded is, why rile everybody up? Why really get Trump's supporters, so mad and so upset with this inflammatory sentencing, this inflammatory mugshot, walking him off in frog chains, putting him under house arrest, whatever the decision would have been? Why risk something like this? Why? It's pointless. This thing's already ours. It's already stolen. Don't rock the boat. We'll throw him in jail after we steal it in November. So, one theory is that this is a sign of strength and that the regime is going to steal the election in November, and they're not even bothering now with sentencing Trump. There's another school of thought, which is mine, that no. Just like Hunter Biden pleading guilty, they now realize Trump's coming to power January 20th. They fear it. And so, son, don't go through a trial where all this evidence is going to come out and we're going to be implicated. Just plead guilty. I'm going to pardon you, and let's get the hell out of Dodge. And as for Juan Merchan, we can't. We're losing now. You sentence him it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be such a blowout, we won't plausibly be able to steal the election. Trump just won a massive, significant victory. Maybe a watershed victory when you look at it in retrospect. Because if they don't put him behind bars, I honestly don't know now if they can stop him. Fraud or no fraud. Agree, disagree. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Russ in Boston. You're going to kick us off, Russ. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, fellow students in Kuhner University, where the learning never ends. Long live Dr. Kuhner.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. My friend, what do you make of Merchan's decision to postpone the sentencing? It caught Bragg off guard. It caught the entire media off guard. Liberal heads, millions of them on social media. Russ, they're going apoplectic. They're calling the judge a traitor, a coward, a wuss. What say you?
You know, Jeff, it's unbelievable, all the scams that they've tried to pull. And I have to say this, okay? I'm 77 years old, and one of the things that I've always done all my life is I've surrounded myself with decent people. Because you can see what people that are not decent, that are scumbags, that have no moral compass whatsoever, that there's no limit for the crap that they'll pull off, okay? Really, these people are a disgrace. Anybody that supports Kamala Harris is a damn fool, and that's all I can say about that, Jeff. They're damn fools. You know, the Democratic Party has destroyed the United States moral high ground. In the past, our country was a role model in helping other countries create democracy and setting up fair and just elections. The Democratic Party set up a Baghdad primary and at the last minute switched candidates. We must elect President Trump. We must regain the moral high ground. This must go back to the country that I grew up in and not the country that I'm living in right now.
Russ, how do you read the tea leaves? Why did Judge Juan Merchan, in your opinion, delay the sentencing? I'm just curious. They've been pulling his strings the entire time. They set it up for Trump to go to jail. Everything led to that conclusion, to that taking place. And at the last second, he blinked. He stopped. Why?
To God, I have no idea. I really honestly don't. I mean, you know, Dr. Grace, you know, makes great points and all. But honestly, I don't know, okay? I do know one thing, that once Trump becomes the president, we are going to clean out the swamp for sure. These scumbags have to go. They got to stop destroying this country. And I'll tell you something. All these idiots, these big SOBs, you know, people like Mark Cuban and the owner of Fox, his son there, I'll tell you something. These people are the worst of the worst. And remember one thing, okay? They don't care about jobs in the United States. All they care about is global. They want to control everything across the whole globe. And that's what their goal is. They don't care about us, okay? Our country can go to hell, okay? Really, these people are no good. They are rotten to the core, okay? And remember one thing about Mark Cuban, okay, as an example, okay? If you go in front of Shark Tanks and you say, I'm a patriotic American, I manufacture all my products here in the United States. Well, you know what? They won't invest in you because they look at you as a damn fool because you should sell out the United States of America.
Oh, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. Look, that's what being a globalist is. It means America last, not America first. And is Mark Cuban, to me, a traitor, an economic traitor? No question. No question. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. You can also text the Kuhner Man at 70470, 70470, And as always, you could message me on Messenger. And there's a lot of reaction coming in. This is from Ken. Jeff, it is very obvious that the sudden decision to plead guilty by Hunter Biden and now this sudden change of heart by this corrupt so-called judge to postpone Trump's sentencing until after the election is all a plan to implement the steal. It just doesn't add up any other way. Interesting. This is from Marcia. Jeff, the left wants this after the election, i.e. the sentencing, to avoid President Trump from getting a huge bump in the polls. Also, I feel they want protests to be violent, i.e. after the election, so martial law can be declared and then avoid a transfer or change of power. Interesting. In other words, this is like an insurance policy. They see Trump marching back to the White House. They've now made a decision. I don't think we can stop him. So if he wins in November, then we put him behind bars. And of course, his supporters are going to, be very upset. Many are going to take to the streets. And, who knows? They could lead to violent clashes or some kind of violence. Boom. Declare martial law. Say this is a terrorist uprising or insurgency. And suddenly now you can't transfer power to this band of insurrectionists and terrorists. Interesting. Let me go one more. This is Paul, and here's what he sent me. Jeff, let's not forget, and it's true, this is a very important development. Let's not forget that on Friday afternoon, longtime Democrat Alan Dershowitz came out and publicly said he is now leaving the Democrat Party. They are crumbling support. Now, I got to tell you, just as a quick aside, that Alan Dershowitz, it's not just Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's not just Tulsi Gabbard, it's not, and remember what RFK said. He goes, you're going to see many more prominent Democrats now defect and join the Trump camp. So a lot of long-time, prominent, influential, liberal Democrats. I'm not talking blue dog, moderate conservative Democrats. These are arch-liberal Democrats. If you would have told me 5 years ago, never mind 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that Alan Dershowitz would leave the Democratic Party and eventually vote for a Republican candidate for president, I'd say you're insane. Like, really, seriously, like, you are serious. I don't know what you're smoking, but get off that crack pipe. That's what I would tell that person. Because I remember in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, first of all, Dershowitz was always an ultra-liberal. I mean, I'm just calling the facts as they are. With the exception of the issue of Israel, where he was much more moderate and centrist on. Outside of the issue of Israel, Dershowitz was a lib. I mean, he was a lib's lib. And he was the bête noir of conservatives. All we ever did was debate Dershowitz on every issue under the sun. So for him, a lifelong liberal Democrat, a progressive Democrat, for him now to abandon the Democratic Party, that's a 5-alarm fire. That shows you how extreme, how radical, frankly, how communistic, how Marxist, how socialist the Democratic Party has now become. And it goes to Paul's point, which is it's all starting to collapse around them. The Kamala Harris campaign, the wheels are coming off. Every interview she's done has been a disaster. Every time she puts forth policy proposals, they're so insane, or they're so destructive, or they're so far to the left nobody can take this woman seriously. That now it's like, look, we're going to lose, and let's just, now let's just try to steal it if we can. If not, we're going to have to deal with the Trump presidency. And that's what Judge Juan Merchan's decision to postpone sentencing now may be a white flag of surrender. We shall see. But Paul is right. Support now for the Democrats is crumbling. It's collapsing. Dershowitz is no longer a Democrat? Hell has just frozen over. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are loaded. Let's go to Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Mark.
Good. Yeah, my point is, I think what President Trump should do is get the tax accountants out there and explain the difference between the what's going to happen if he doesn't get reelected. The 2017 Trump tax cuts will expire at the end of next year, and and mention to the seniors and push this point that he wants to eliminate the tax on Social Security payments. I'm up here in New Hampshire. Trump says it could be a battleground state. It could come down to New Hampshire. And, I'm out there. My wife and I have been holding signs and, walking in parades and this and that for Trump. What's your comment?
Well, look, I think you're completely right. I think New Hampshire is going to be a very key battleground state. I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to steal it this time. I could be wrong. Never underestimate the evil and the treachery of the Democrats and the dirtiness of the Democrats and the corruption of the Democrats. But I don't think they're going to be able to steal New Hampshire this time. From everything I've seen, from everything I've been told, there is such a sea of support for Trump this time. I think we're going to overwhelm him at the polls. And one of the reasons, there are multiple reasons, but one of them is what you just talked about. Kamala Harris will allow the Trump tax cuts to expire. So that means your taxes are going to go up. My taxes, everybody in this audience, anybody, if you're working class, you're middle class, senior citizen, your taxes are going up. If you're a small business owner, your taxes under Kamala, your rate is going to be 44.6%. Okay, let's not quibble. 45% tax rate for small business owners. Small business is going to get annihilated. Small business is going to be torn to shreds under Kamala Harris. So, by the way, she's going to raise taxes $5 trillion in total. This is going to wipe us out. It's going to lead to a Great Depression. It's going to kill the economy. And it's going to wipe us out. So when you look at her policies, the few that she's actually released, this is why Dershowitz is fleeing. This is why RFK is fleeing. This is why Tulsi Gabbard is fleeing. They're so extreme. They're so radical. Honestly, they're insane. You have to ask yourself, who the hell is managing that campaign? What you do is you lie. If you want to be a socialist like this, lie. Just lie. And then do what you do once you get into power. But they can't help themselves. They just can't. They're so extreme. They're like fanatics. Fanatics can't help themselves. They have to keep talking and talking and talking and talking. And so you're completely right, Mark. This is why she's not going to win New Hampshire. She's not going to win Georgia. She's not winning Arizona and Nevada. No way. She's not going to win Pennsylvania. This alone is the ball game. Okay, just what I've told you now, it's over. But she's not going to win Michigan, and she's not going to win Wisconsin. So Trump is going to have 300 to 330 electoral college votes. That's including millions of fraudulent voters. Even if you give them fraud, voting fraud, we're going to swamp them. They have to do something in 2024 that has never been done before. They're going to need to put Kamala at about 90 million. That means 30, 40 million manufactured ballots. That's a lot of ballots to manufacture. That's a lot of fraud. That's Eastern European level fraud, where it's so obvious, it's so explicit, people take to the streets. I mean, it's not close. It's not where you say, well, I don't know, maybe the person did win. I don't know. No. And that's why I think tomorrow is all or nothing. If she gets blown out tomorrow, forget that. If she just loses tomorrow, all they have left is voter fraud. There's going to be no second debate, never mind the third debate. So after this, everything, this debate tomorrow now becomes more important and more consequential, because now, that was always their plan B, their insurance policy. We can put them behind bars. We can jail them. We can knock them off the campaign trail. We put him in that orange jumpsuit, holy mackerel, kiss away 5, 10, 15 points in the polls. Friday, Judge Merchan said no. His handlers, his puppet masters said no. They're in trouble. Mark, I'm telling you, the Democrats now, with 2 months out, are in big, big trouble. Mark, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Chuck in Dighton. Thanks for holding, Chuck, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Hi, Chuck. I'm good. How are you, Chuck?
I am good. Hey, the only question I've got, I hope that Donald asks when he's in that debate tomorrow, is why the Democrats refuse to have fair elections. Period. Let her answer that.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of questions he could ask her. Chuck, you have to understand, I hear where you're coming from. Please don't get me wrong. You want to throw her on defense. Everything is going to be scripted for her. The ABC News has already given her the questions ahead of time. I guarantee it. She's now locked up in some hotel room in Philadelphia, trying to cram the answers to the questions. And apparently she's even struggling with that. She's going to have an earpiece. I think she will be fed stuff in her ear. The problem is you only have 90 minutes, so you don't have a lot of time. And if you ask her a question, that cedes time to her. Now, I know your point that if you let her talk, she's so stupid and so incoherent and so vacuous and so contradictory and so obviously incapable that, she's going to be thoroughly exposed. I get it. But if you're a presidential candidate, I don't know if I want to cede valuable time like that, because I want to talk to the voters of what I will do for you. Like, for example, what Mark mentioned earlier. He can go to senior citizens and say, I want you to know your taxes on Social Security are over once I win. I want you to know that. I'm going to save Social Security. I'm going to save Medicare, and I'm going to cut your taxes for I'm going to get rid of them. Now, many seniors don't know that. So what I'm saying is, Chuck, he has such positive policies that are so going to benefit this country and so many groups of Americans. It's not just that he's got to be negative and go after her. He's got to make sure he has time to get his points and his vision and his policies and his agenda across. Am I making any sense to you, Chuck?
Absolutely, Jeff. Making 100%. 100%. Like I said, once again, if they steal it, everything you just said means nothing. So that's the big thing. We have to stop the steal. That's the only way. In a real world, he's already won. But listen, Chuck, look, between you and me and these, entre nous, as the French would say, among us girls, right? Among us, if this was a free and fair election,
Trump is up 25, 30 points. This thing is over. I mean, this thing is over. With any kind of a fair media, exposing the stuff that has come out of Kamala Harris's mouth over the last 4 or 5 years, never mind the last couple of weeks, the crazy stuff she says on the campaign trail, the few times she's actually answering questions, it's over. This thing's over. No, tomorrow night, this is the importance of tomorrow night. He has to beat her enough, okay, really beat her, that the country will look and say, no way should that woman be anywhere near the White House. No way. So that takes away the plausibility of the steal. See, that's why they overthrew Biden. Remember, he was fine up until they overthrew him. They were all, he's fit, he's sharp as a tack. What are you talking about, mental decline? All of them. He does laps around us every day. Oh my, the intellectual energy of this guy, Chuck. Oh, 16, 18, 20-hour days. He's reading 2 books a day, policy paper after policy paper. Oh, hey, Joe, slow down. The 20-year-olds can't keep up with you. The only reason, and that was their line, until they saw the polling in which they said, no, it's so bad now, especially in the wake of that disastrous CNN debate. Guys, we just can't steal this. Like, we just can't. I mean, I'm telling you, we can't. It's too much. It's just too much. You can do some, but you can't do this. And then everything changed. By the way, now, Chuck, the very same people, literally the very same people who said, you don't get more fit for office, more energetic for office. This guy's 81 going on 21. Now are leaking and saying he has spent nearly, listen to this, Chuck, 50% of his presidency on vacation. 50% of his presidency on vacation. Joe Biden. In fact, his nickname, I had no idea. They call him Beach Bum Biden. That was his nickname by his staff. Beach Bum Biden. Because this guy will spend weeks and weeks and weeks on the beach, as he's doing now. And he's in outer space. Look at the waves. But the very same people who are now saying, oh, he's too old, oh, washed up, oh, he's got early signs of dementia, cognitive decline, we did what we had to do, were the very same ones just 6 weeks ago. The guy's a genius. Oh, my God. Nobody can keep up with him. He was the GOAT. He was the greatest president since George Washington. This is the garbage they were peddling. The new FDR. Now, well, he was never there. Well, actually, he's always on vacation. He worked 2 or 3 days a week, and the rest, he was in Rehoboth. So, these are the kinds of people we're dealing with, Chuck. He knocks her out tomorrow, and then the plausibility for the steal. Once they lose that, they're in big trouble. Final word to you, Chuck.
Final word, Jeff, to all you Democrats out there who think Kamala Harris is the way for this country. You have no idea what's going on in the world today, and you are, I'm sorry, but an idiot.
Drop the mic, Chuck. Really. I hate to say that, but you're right. You're an idiot. You vote for her, I'm telling you, you're a stone-cold idiot. This election is about really 2 things. Common sense, and it's an IQ test. I'm sorry, but that's just, do you have common sense? And really, how can you want to vote in communism? You want to vote in food shortages? You want to vote in a Great Depression? You want to vote in a guaranteed world war with Russia? I mean, I could just go on and on. You want to guarantee, you want to vote in and guarantee that we become Venezuela? That's what you're getting with this airhead. 617-266-6868 is the number. Al in the great state of Florida. Thanks for holding, Al, and welcome.
Hey, Kuhner, my theory, and it's only a 50% chance theory, is that they kind of want Trump to win because the war in Ukraine has been lost. And all it takes is someone to say, we're not going to fund the war anymore. They'll end, that war will end, and Trump will look like he is working with Putin again to end that war. And then they'll come up with another way just to make his presidency unmanageable and unbearable. And that way they don't have to admit defeat. And if that is the case, Trump really needs to, during the debates, let the people know that 500,000 or 600,000 Ukrainians have been killed in that war, and that 100,000 or 200,000 Russians have been killed in that war. And it needs to be brought to everyone's attention that that is a wicked war that the deep state has profited hundreds of billions of dollars from. They've stolen the money, but whatever it takes, we need to end that war. We need to end the wars in the Middle East. In the Middle East, we need to be at peace. War is failure of democracy, of diplomacy. I mean, it's failure of diplomacy.
You're right. Al, you're completely right. No, you're completely right. And he has to show to the American people that Kamala Harris, by the way, just got endorsed by Dick Cheney. Not Liz Cheney. She also endorsed him. But Dick Cheney, Kate Bush's former, vice president. She's a neocon. She's a creature of the military-industrial complex. 7:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends. How many years of lawfare? How many years now have the Democrats tried to do everything to put Trump in jail, to put him in prison? And they were taunting him all summer. Apparently, they even had a cell ready for him at Rikers. And then on Friday, all of it came crashing down. Judge Juan Merchan issued a statement saying that for him to sentence Trump 6 weeks before the November 5th election would be tantamount to direct election interference, that he will not have that on his conscience, on his reputation, on his credibility. And so he has decided to delay the sentencing until 3 weeks after the election, November 26th. It doesn't matter whether it's conservative media, liberal media, new media, establishment media. Everybody agreed on one point. This was a significant, massive victory for Trump and a huge setback for the Democrats, for Merrick Garland, for Alvin Bragg, and for the entire left of the Democratic Party. And so my question to you, why do you think now, at the 11th hour, when everything was building up towards Trump being put behind bars, or at a minimum under house arrest with an ankle bracelet, this is what it was all leading up to. Why have the Democrats blinked? Is it because they fear that Trump is now unstoppable? And had they put him behind bars, it would so inflame not just his supporters, but anger and infuriate the entire country, revolt and disgust the entire country. It would give him an insurmountable bump in the polls where they can't even steal it. Or is it because they now believe the election is in the bag? That they have enough pieces in place, an extensive enough network to steal this thing, and then they can put Trump behind bars, that by putting him now in jail, it would just be senseless. It would rile up his entire base, It would get people very angry. And if you do that on the eve of the election, it would only make the steal potentially even more reckless and more dangerous and more risky. So this is Grace's theory. When she heard this, she goes, I'm telling you, they are confident enough that they can steal it. And they're saying, why stir up a hornet's nest 6 weeks before the election? Why do that? Don't make unnecessary trouble for yourself. Wait till after the election. I think she's wrong. I think it's a sign of weakness, not a sign of strength. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Lou in Peabody. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi,
Good
Lou.
morning.
Hi.
So I wanted to call to say I believe that Grace is correct, unfortunately, and it makes me so scared, so paranoid. However, I want to apply this to something we really need to do, because these Democrats I call them communists. They're evil geniuses, and I don't know why we're not thinking like them. And we have to figure that there is no way on this green earth that she could beat Trump at the ballot box. They're evil geniuses, and I don't know why we're not. Are we still here? Like that.
You got to turn. What the problem is, Lou, you have the radio on. You got to turn your radio off. Turn your radio off, and then I can hear you properly. Because there's a 30-second delay, so you're hearing stuff in your ear that you said 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, I just checked to see if I was even talking to you still. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Lou, so basically you're saying, look, they're evil. They're evil geniuses. They know they can't win this at the ballot box. It's obvious. So what do you think their plan is, Lou? Quickly, because we're up against it.
Okay, so we just have to keep going back to the demographics, the voting demographics. Okay, Obama has 63 million votes. Trump breaks his record with 75 million votes. We have never had that many people vote. A turnout percentage of 70% has never been done since the Civil War. This is an absolute steal. 2020, it'll be done again. So we need to already pre-plan with lawyers and whatever else is necessary to make sure we take care of it the way we need to take care of it.
Lou, thank you very much for that call. Look, I don't like that strategy, because, like when you separate with someone, they say possession is 9/10 of the argument, right? 9/10 of the argument is, well, who's in the house and who's outside the house. If they steal it and we're fighting it in court, they'll win. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, an excellent question, a really good question from Marianne. Good morning, Jeff. I'm asking a question because I think I know the answer, but you're the expert. So let's say, God forbid, that this compromised Judge Juan Merchan, does end up putting Trump in prison after the election. Would Trump still be able to run the country, or would that default automatically to J.D. Vance? It's not something I want to see happen to Trump, of course. I'm just curious as to how things would work if, and I say again, God forbid, it did happen. No, that's an excellent question. It's a really, really good question. Now, from my understanding, here is the problem the Democrats are going to have. Number one, the conviction, in fact, the entire trial against Trump based on this falsifying business records is a violation of something called the Federal Election Campaign Act. It is literally a violation of federal law. Because remember, the reason why it was quote unquote a felony was because they took state law regarding falsifying documents and shoehorned it to a campaign finance violation, which is a federal law. Well, the problem is that the Federal Election Campaign Act supersedes all state laws when it comes to elections. That's why on appeal, Trump is going to win. I'm telling you, it's a slam dunk. He's going to win. He knows he's going to win. And everybody knows he's going to win. When it comes to the issue of elections, federal law is the supreme law of the land. It trumps all state or local laws. If the two conflict, federal law always wins out over state law. So what really should have happened is that the moment Alvin Bragg brought these preposterous, ridiculous, bogus charges against Trump, the Department of Justice on the very same day should have intervened and said, no, this violates the Federal Election Campaign Act. This literally violates federal law. We're not letting you proceed. And if you do, it's an abuse of power on your part. The reason why they didn't was because, wink, wink, Merrick Garland and Joe Biden wanted Alvin Bragg to proceed with this garbage case. So it's going to be appealed, and it's going to be appealed, and they're going to lose. Trump, in the end, will be completely vindicated. Completely vindicated. Number one. Number two, there's another big problem. The Supreme Court ruled on presidential immunity and what constitutes official acts of a president. In the wake of that ruling, you have to redo the trial against Trump. The Alvin Bragg, all the cases, in fact, they're all going to get thrown out, but you have to redo the trial because now this ruling is the law of the land. So much of what was allowed in the trial is illegal under this new ruling by the Supreme Court. So Trump has got multiple guaranteed slam dunk appeals. So that's why he wins in November, and they can sentence him November 26. There's going to be an automatic appeal. And all Trump needs to do is have his Department of Justice on day one shoot down all of these convictions. That's why if they were really going to put him in jail, it would have been now. Now would have been the time to do it while they still control, the Democrats still control the Department of Justice. That's why this is an absolutely huge victory for Trump. A massive victory for Trump. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why would they pull back from the brink? Grace believes it's because they have guaranteed the steal, or in their minds they're convinced, just because they're convinced of something doesn't mean it's going to happen. But she believes they are so self-confident now that they think we're going to steal it and they can't stop us. So if we put him behind bars, we're needlessly inflaming his base, his voters, and at least half the country. Why do that? It's stupid. It's stupid. I believe it's the exact opposite. I'm sorry. I can't read the evidence any other way. They've got an awful candidate. Maybe the worst presidential candidate in American history. Look, just objectively, come on, just stand back for a second. She hasn't done a press conference in 50 days. I've never heard of this. Outside of that one softball interview with CNN and Dana Bash, this is CNN. She won't do an interview. She's literally running from she's not running from a hostile media. She's running from an in-the-tank friendly media. She's a woman who has flip-flopped just in the last couple of weeks on every position she held before. She's running on price controls for food. Do you know how nuts and insane that is? She's running on taxing unrealized capital gains. If you have any sense of the economy, of business, hell, destroying people's net worth, destroying your homes, destroying your 401ks, destroying your retirement accounts. She's nuts. Like, I'm sorry, she's nuts. She's crazy. So there's no way this woman can win. And so, look, anything's possible. I mean, who knows? We're in uncharted territory. But I look at this now. I see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now endorsing him. I see Tulsi Gabbard endorsing him. I see Dershowitz now has come out leaving the Democratic Party. I see Elon Musk fully on board. Trump is now going to set up a government efficiency commission with Elon Musk heading it. I look at his economic agenda. It is an incredible economic platform. And we already had 4 years of Trump. Everybody knows it was so much better under him than it was under Kamala and Biden. So much better. It's not even close. It's day and night. Everything they have, and this is my wife. This is all my wife, what I'm telling you right now. This is all Grace. And I think she hit the nail right on the head. What we're watching is not a campaign for Kamala. It's a movie. It's a Hollywood, literally, it's a Hollywood produced, Hollywood directors, Hollywood producers have teamed up with the Obama people to produce a film, a movie. Kamala, the movie. And this is all imaging. This is all her hairstyle, her clothes, her white teeth. Fabricate this ridiculous narrative that she came from some underprivileged working class family who rose up as a tough prosecutor and a brilliant vice president, and to now breaking the ultimate glass ceilings. Here is an oppressed female minority, and now she's on the cusp of the White House. And it's all stage managed. It's all been orchestrated. She has never won one primary. She's never won one primary vote. She was roundly known as the worst, just 2 months ago, as the worst vice president in American history. And all of a sudden now she's the second coming of Barack Hussein Obama? It's a movie. It's a production. They're just selling us. It's a product. And it's with, joy and vibes and feel good about yourself. And it's all buzzwords. It's all feel-goodism. It's all an emotion. That's what this is. There's nothing of substance there at all. At all. Now, that can take you a week. That can take you 2 weeks. That can take you maybe a month. But the act is starting to wear thin. And people are starting to pay attention, and they're starting to take notice. The more they see of her, the more they don't like. Because, my friends, this is the ultimate hoax. You can forget Russia, Russia, Russia. You can forget the Hunter Biden laptop. I could go on. This is the ultimate hoax. That this woman is qualified to be president of the United States. It's a massive, monstrous lie. This is a woman who literally slept her way to the top and has been a DEI candidate her entire career. She's been promoted above her abilities over and over and over again. To the point now, I don't know if you saw Putin, when asked about her becoming the next president, he laughed in her face. They're literally laughing at her. 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a watershed or potentially a watershed victory for President Trump. Clearly a major, significant victory. Democrats, you can tell by the reaction. Democrats, their heads were exploding all weekend. They are in shock and utter disbelief. Judge Juan Merchan, who they were so certain was going to sentence Trump to jail, or at a minimum house arrest, ankle bracelet at his home in Mar-a-Lago, has now pulled back from the brink. He has delayed and postponed sentencing of Trump until after the November 5th election. Now, the reasons he gave was that it would be perceived as direct election interference. And he's pretty much telegraphing, I'm going to send him to jail. I want him in an orange jumpsuit, and I want him behind bars. I want him in Rikers. Or at a bare minimum, I want him on some ankle bracelet stuck in his home in Mar-a-Lago. And this is what the libs, the Dems were drooling over. This is what they were hoping and praying for. By putting him in jail, A, would knock him off the campaign trail and it's effectively end his campaign for president. And B, more importantly for them, they believe that mugshot would tank Trump's numbers in the polls and hand the election over to Kamala Harris. So my question to you, why would a hack like Merchan, whose strings are clearly being pulled by Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris, why did he refuse to sentence Trump before the election? What is your theory? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, buddy. How are you, my man?
How are you, my friend?
Living the dream every day, pal. Loving life.
Mark, what do you think? You think Trump's you think Trump is now on the path to? Is he, as I like to put it, is he at the gates of victory now? Is he on the path to the White House?
Yeah, he is, Jeff. Now, look, in all things being fair and even, there's no way Trump loses. You know, Democrats, you know, their motto has always been, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat, right? So they'll do their best to try to win, or they'll do their worst, you know? So, couple things. If they manage to pull it off and Harris wins, she'll call for Trump to not face any jail time, blah, 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 but that's a separate issue. This is what I think is really going to happen, Jeff. The judge is going to sentence Trump to 60 days. Why 60 days? Well, that pushes it out past the inauguration. So if Trump wins and he sentences him to 60 days, when it comes to January 6th, Jeff, every single Democrat plus Harris will vote to not certify the election. They'll all say, we cannot certify a guy to sit in jail and rule this country. So they're going to do, they'll pull out every stop, Jeff, to make sure that the certification never happens. Now, what's that's going to do? I mean, that's going to cause riots, chaos, war, pretty much. You'll have 90 million supporters of Donald Trump are going to take to the streets, Jeff. And like someone said earlier, martial law, Trump goes to jail, Biden stays in office and says, I can't continue as president. I'm going to hand it off to Kamala Harris. She becomes acting president, Jeff, while we sort this whole conflict out. It's one big nasty scheme, Jeff.
Let me ask you, Mark, because I think you're onto something, as usual. Mark, let me ask you this, and I don't want you to get in trouble. I'm not trying to elicit a rise out of you. I'm not. I just want to ask you your honest, unfiltered opinion. And if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. I promise I will not get offended and I will completely understand. God forbid this scenario that you've outlined, this dark, chilling scenario takes place. Trump wins the popular vote. According to the New York Times, this came out yesterday. Trump will beat Harris in the popular vote. The Electoral College, it'll be a landslide, a rout. He wins. Merchan sentences him to 60 days or 90 days or whatever. Now he can't be inaugurated. The Democrats say, forget convicted felon. We got a guy now who's in jail. He's behind bars. I'm sorry. He's an insurrectionist. This is unprecedented. We are not going to certify this election that would allow a criminal to be put into the White House. So now they've overturned the election. They decertified. They're refusing to certify the election. Biden can't continue. Acting president is Kamala Harris. She's the VP. She's now in office. The election has effectively been stolen. What will you do, Mark? In all honesty.
Well, Jeff, that's the big question, right? As someone that loves this country, and I love there are three things, Jeff, in this world that I hold above all. It's faith, family, and flag, Jeff, right? And if they do that, Jeff, that will affect each and every one of those things. And I don't care. I will stand at the front line, Jeff, with anybody that wants to go and fight this, Jeff. I cannot and will not sit by and watch this kind of crap happen. And I don't care. I mean, I'm sure the black helicopters are already circling my house waiting for me to do something. Whatever. I don't really care. But I will defend my family and my flag and my faith until the very end, Jeff. And if that means that I have to get down and dirty, then fine. So be it. I got a safe full of toys that I can bring out. I don't have a problem with it. The question is, Jeff, what's everyone else willing to do? Is everyone else willing to stand at that front line and say, enough's enough? You people have stolen this. You people are destroying this country, and we're sick and tired of it. And it's time to fight back. Because too many people, Jeff, talk about it, but then don't want to do anything when push comes to shove.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, Mark. Look, and I don't want to get you in trouble. So you already said enough. I understand exactly where you're coming from. Because you're right. The FBI, the DOJ, the NSA, the deep state. I mean, they're looking to lock Trump supporters up. So you've made your point. In all honesty, let's say they go down that route, okay? They go down that path, that dark path. What do you think the response will be from the American people? It's now January 21st. Trump has not been inaugurated. Trump's in jail. Harris is, even though she lost the election, Harris is now the president, acting president. What do you think most Americans, and in particular, most Americans, most voters who cast a ballot for Trump, what will they do, in your opinion?
Most of them will do what they always do and sit on their hands and scream and yell. That's about it. I think that the bulk of people, Jeff, will be outraged, will be angry, and will say, someone has to do something about this. Someone else has to do something about this. Oh, I can't get involved. I have children. I have a job. Well, you know what? None of that's going to exist if we allow these people to destroy this country and wipe their backsides with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, okay? Because that's what they ultimately want. They want to tear those documents up and say, hey, you know what? We're in power. We get to do whatever the hell we want. And if it means locking 80 million people up in camps, then that's what we're going to do. But the problem is, Jeff, I think too many people are complacent and they expect someone else to do something. And until they can change that mentality, they're going to continue to get away with this kind of crap. And that's the biggest problem.
Mark, as always, thank you very much for your call. Well, there you have it. Mark has laid it all out. I mean, do you agree with him? I'm just curious. Now, I can just tell you this, okay? I'm not saying it's going to be violent, and I'm certainly, you know me, I'm a man of peace. I don't want any violence. I don't want a single drop of blood to be shed. If they go down that road, and I think, Mark, there's a very plausible scenario here. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's very plausible. This is the games now they're playing. The country's going to blow up. Or to be more accurate, the country's going to break up. If you nakedly steal an election, and they're not stealing it at the ballot box this time, right? Remember, the scenario is, in other words, Trump wins. He wins. Okay? No, he wins. But then this judge, this hack, all right, this judicial assassin, because that's what he is, says, no, you're doing 60 days or 90 days in the can. Go. Bye. And now Trump is not inaugurated because remember, Jamie Raskin, they have a bill. They go, if we can win back control of the House, we're not going to certify Trump. On January 6th, they're going to have their January 6th. And they've openly said it. We're not certifying Trump. We're going to decertify the election. And Schumer's going to do the same in the Senate. So if that happens, and they're going to say, well, look, he's in jail. How can you have a criminal? A convicted felon who's now he's in jail. We're going to have him go to become president? Impossible. So we're going to install acting. Biden won't do it. He's done. He'll pass it off to Kamala. She will be the acting president. So effectively, they'll have stolen the presidency. Okay, not the election. They have stolen the presidency. If that happens, I'm telling you, it's going to be 1861 all over again. And I don't mean civil war, because I think Mark is right. I think it's a different time, different people, different character. I don't think people are willing to die now. But what I do think will happen is I think Texas is going to say we're out. I think Florida is going to say we're out. I think many red states who voted for Trump are going to say bye. Bye. We just don't recognize her authority, period. We just don't. We're going to hold a referendum. We're out. And I think you're going to see the dissolution, the breaking up of the country. Now, why am I mentioning all this? A, because it's a very real possibility. B, that's why we have to win in November in massive, overwhelming numbers. The Republicans retain control of the House. Republicans win back the Senate, not because I love the Republicans, but to protect Trump. And immediately, should Merchan say he spends a day in jail, immediately, this has to be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. Immediately. Every single Republican must stand shoulder to shoulder with Trump. And the American people must stand shoulder to shoulder with Trump. So it's going to be a game of chicken. We can't blink. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. John in Westford. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
I don't know if you heard George Soros just a few days ago. He said, well, it'll only be 4 years, kind of implying that Trump will win. And this can be viewed two ways, just like you and your wife view the judge's decision two ways. We're viewing this two different ways as well. It could be that it's a done deal. I mean, that Trump's just going to flood the election and win. My wife believes that it's cooked. And then George Soros is going to use, kind of like Zuckerberg used Zuckerbucks to ballot harvest, that they're going to do the same thing with Open Society or whatever fake entity he's going to create and steal the election. So it's the same thing. What do you think?
Well, that's what I see, John. I got to tell you, really, like, MAGA is united. Fundamentally, we're united, obviously, okay? Where we disagree, and that's okay. I mean, that's what it is to be, live in a free society and be a free people, is really, MAGA is split almost down the middle. And it's what, you talk about you and your wife, it's me and my wife, and it's really, I think it's almost in every MAGA home. One says they're going to steal it, as you put it, it's cooked. It's rigged, it's done. They're going to do it, come hell or high water, and the consequences be damned. And then there's the other half who says they got so much to lose if they do this. Like, so much to lose. No, we're going to swamp them, and it's going to be a miracle, and Trump is going to win. And they're going to have to manage him for 4 years. In other words, they had to manage him for 4. Look, I mean, to be brutally honest, John, they can make his life an absolute nightmare as president for 4 years. If they're smart, they let him come to power. I know he's going to, he's going to clean house. He's going to start sending people to jail. He's going to, do a lot of things that are going to reverse their policies. But, they can look. You've got the CIA, you've got the FBI, you've got the NSA, you've got the media, you've got Democrats, you've got traitor establishment Republicans. Hell, John, Dick Cheney, forget Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney has now come out and said he's endorsing Kamala Harris. Holy mackerel. So you've got saboteurs within the very heart of the Republican Party and the very heart of the Republican establishment. So, they can make his life really difficult. They can tie him up in knots. Now, will he undo quite a bit of what they've done? Yes. But they can survive Trump if they're smart. The problem is they're very nervous because he's a force of nature. He's a man who does what he says. He means what he says, and he says what he means. And so we'll see. But look, John, the way I read the evidence, they're collapsing. It's too much. It's just too much. Inflation is too bad. The border, I got stories. John, I'm not kidding. In Springfield, Ohio. Okay, I'm going to try to get to this later in the show. It is a town of 40,000 people. They have flooded it with 20,000 illegals from Haiti. They're all Haitian so-called migrants, okay, illegals. The town is now swelled from 40 to 60,000. It's now an open secret. It's all coming out. Law enforcement is confirming it. City council is confirming it. Numerous eyewitnesses are confirming it. They're eating cats and dogs.
Which app do you want to open?
Okay? They're eating cats and dogs. They're literally capturing people's pets. They're capturing people's pets, and they're stringing them up on branches, and they're skinning them, and they're eating them. Cats, dogs. Some of these parks, you have like ducks and geese. They chase after the ducks and the geese. And then they rip their heads off. They decapitate them, and they start either cooking them or eating them. To the point now that Springfield, Ohio has such a serious problem. You can look it up. Look it up on their town website. Protect your pets. If my Rocky was there, they're going to grab and eat Rocky. Your little cat, your little kitten, Spot, or whatever people call their kittens nowadays. Okay? They're going to, they're going to eat him or eat her. It's too much. It's too much. That's the problem now. It's just too much. And they're just collapsing on all fronts. And, people underestimate this, but Elon Musk coming out publicly for Trump, he's a big oligarch. Big oligarch. You've got other major billionaires who have now come out for Trump, saying, no, this can't continue anymore. So what I'm saying is, you've got Robert F. Kennedy now. That's huge. You've got Tulsi Gabbard. You've got Alan Dershowitz. More are coming. Too many people are defecting. Too many people are leaving the Democrat Party. There's just too much opposition to this regime. And they can't sell Kamala. They're trying to. They just can't do it. She's too stupid. She's too vacuous. She's not she's a god-awful candidate. She's a horrible politician because she's a bad liar. She's a compulsive, pathological liar, but she's a bad liar. So what I'm saying is, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I have a crystal ball. Grace is more often right than wrong. I'm going to be honest with you. She says I'm a little bit too naive. She says I'm a little bit too optimistic. She says I have too much faith in the American people. That's my problem. That I see everything through the lens of Ronald Reagan because I'm basically a Reagan baby. Maybe. I don't know. But the way I read the evidence, John, this one, they just can't steal. They just can't steal. And I'm hearing the New York Times saying they're going to have to learn to live with Trump. The Washington Post, they have to learn to live with Trump. You know, you mentioned the Soros clan. I'm hearing too many powerful voices in the Democratic Party accept defeatism and the inevitability of Trump coming back. So there's too many cracks that I see in the Democrat media establishment. That's why I'm convinced he's coming back. Final word to you, John.
I think too many people have too much to lose, too much ill-gotten gain, possible jail time, that they're going to plan something big.
When you say plan something big, what do you mean, John? You mean like something against Trump? I got you. Yeah, that's my big fear. To be honest, they tried it in Butler, and they failed by a millimeter. 8:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, please, all of you, I want you to just sit back for a second and listen now to this, because it sums up the feelings of many who are Trump supporters, Trump voters within the MAGA movement. And it's from Eric Weinstein. Now, you may be saying, Jeff, who the hell is Eric Weinstein? He is an absolutely brilliant economist. He received his PhD in mathematical physics from Harvard University. He's the one, in fact, that coined the term the dark web. Now, he's a very wealthy man. He's the former director of Thiel Capital. Peter Thiel, one of the most wealthiest oligarchs in our country. He is a big hedge fund guy, multi-billionaire. Okay, a very influential, very wealthy venture capitalist and hedge fund manager. So, in a recent podcast, this is what Eric Weinstein said. He said that don't be surprised. In fact, he goes further, saying that it's entirely possible that Trump will not allowed to be president in 2024. That they just won't let him in. And he says the reason why they won't let him in, this is a quote, I don't know whether Donald Trump will be allowed to become president. And the podcaster, the host, says, well, what do you mean by that? Now, here is what Weinstein said, quote, and it's a warning. It's a warning to the country and really to the world. I think that there's a remarkable story, and we're in a funny game, which is, are we allowed to say what that story is? Because to say it, to analyze it, to name it, is to bring it into view. And I don't think we understand why the censorship is behaving the way it is. We don't understand why it's in the shadows. We don't understand why our news is acting in such a bizarre fashion. So let's just set the stage. Given that was in February, he's talking about these people coming out with saying that there's a rules-based international order and that Trump cannot be allowed, that's the World Economic Forum, that Trump cannot be allowed to come up and threaten or overthrow this so-called rules-based international order. Well, listen now to Eric Weinstein. He says what this is, this new world order, what they're calling the rules-based international order, It's, quote, an interlocking series of agreements, tacit understandings, explicit understandings, clandestine understandings about how the most important structures keep the world free of war and keep markets open. And there has been a system in place, whether understood explicitly or behind the scenes or implicitly, that says that the purpose of the two American parties, listen now to this, is to prune the field of populist candidates so that whatever two candidates exist in a face-off are both acceptable to that world order. In other words, we don't care if it's Nikki Haley. We don't care if it's Ron DeSantis. We don't care if it's Mitt Romney. We don't care if it's Manja Chris Christie. We don't care. Or Jeb Bush, or Dick Cheney, or Liz Cheney, or whoever. Or it's Kamala, or it's Obama, or it's Hillary, or it's Joey, or Joe Biden. Listen now to Eric Weinstein. So what you're trying to do from this point of view, in other words, maintain this world order, is say you're the State Department. You're the intelligence community. Forgive me, I got something in my throat. You're in the intelligence community. You're in the Defense Department. Major corporations that are dealing with everything from arms trade to, I don't know, food. Well, they can't allow these agreements to be overturned. So what the two parties would do is they are going to run primaries. You have populist candidates, and they want these populist candidates to be defeated. Remember, the two candidates have to be acceptable to the international order. That is, they aren't candidates that aren't going to rethink NATO or whatever these people call democracy. You see, democracy now has become the illusion of choice. What's called magician's choice, where the choice is not actually, pick a card, any card, but somehow the magician makes sure that the card that you pick is the one that he knows. And in that situation, you have magician's choices in the primaries. And then you have the duopoly field, two candidates, either of which was acceptable, and you can afford to actually hold an election. So what he's saying is, as long as it's Tweedledee and Tweedledum, democracies is fine. Otherwise, it isn't. 8:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so let me put an exclamation point on the last segment because it is molto importante. So here you have Eric Weinstein, one of the most brilliant economists in the world, forget the country, in the world, who was one of the top directors for Thiel in Capital. Peter Thiel, very wealthy. He's an oligarch, multi-billionaire, one of the most powerful, influential, well-connected people in the entire world. Now, Eric Weinstein was there. In fact, Weinstein himself ended up making a ton of money. Weinstein saw everything from the inside. He knows how the globalists work. He knows the World Economic Forum. He knows exactly the new world order that is now being constructed brick by brick by brick. And so he's on this podcast and he says, I don't think they're going to let Trump back in. Like, they're not going to let him back in. And the guy's like, what do you mean? He goes, well, look, and I'm just going to sum it up very succinctly. He goes, we're talking about an international order. They call it the rules-based order. It's really the new world order. With all of these trade deals and investment deals and implicit relationships, explicit relationships, in other words, incredibly powerful vested interests. And these people are making unimaginable amounts of money and have unimaginable amounts of power and control. Now, he says the way they've set up elections, yes, they're free and fair elections, as long as you're part of what he calls the magician's choice. The magician shows you a card, says pick a card, any card. well, if it's going to be free and fair, whatever card you pick, you pick. He always makes sure you pick the card that he wants you to pick. So his words, not mine. He goes, what they've done is they've set up a duopoly. Now they go, really, two candidates, either which is acceptable to these globalists, okay, to these corporate power masters of the universe, if you want to call them. Now, here's what he says. And then, of course, you could actually afford to hold an election, and the populace would vote. In other words, there wasn't hanky-panky, because Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, they win. Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, they win. But it doesn't matter. George Bush or John Kerry, they win. Dick Cheney, who endorsed Kamala Harris, Dick Cheney or Kamala Harris, they win. It's the same for the most part. So this is what he says. And that way, the international order wasn't put at risk every 4 years. Because you can't have alliances, these globalist alliances, that are subject to the whim of the people in plebiscites, i.e. in democratic elections. Now, this is the bomb. He says they had it. They had the system, the whole system rigged. So under that structure, I'm quoting him directly now, everything was going fine until 2016. And then the first candidate ever to not hold any position in the military, nor position in government in the history of the Republic, to enter the Oval Office, Donald Trump broke through the primary structure. So then there was a full court press. Destroy him at all costs. Okay, well now, he says, we have one candidate that's acceptable to the international order. Kamala Harris. She's a puppet of the system. Donald Trump, however, will be under constant pressure. He's a loser. He's a wild man. He's an idiot. He's under the control of the Russians. And then he was going to be a 20-1 underdog, but then he won in 2016. And there was no precedent for this. Their lesson: you cannot afford to have candidates who are not acceptable to the international order and continue to have these alliances. And this is an unsolved problem for them. And so what he's saying is, don't you get it? They have to bankrupt him. They've got to unleash lawfare. They've got to take him off the ballot. Son of a gun, it didn't work. Okay, well now they've got to put him behind bars. Son of a gun, it's not working. Wink, wink. They tried to assassinate him once. They're going to have to kill him. And now he's saying it may get to the point that they can't kill him because it'll cause such a backlash, such an intense, violent reaction. So what it may be is what we're talking about now, Judge Juan Merchan. So maybe it's, okay, the guy wins the election. We just can't stop that now. Just too much support. Just too much. Too many voters. They're swamping the polls. We just can't risk manufacturing 30, 40, 50 million votes. We just can't. It's too much. But what if Merchan sentences to 60 to 90 days? Then we can maybe say we won't certify him. And he never gets inaugurated. And this way, we steal the presidency. Of course, always under the guise of, quote unquote, saving democracy. My point is just this. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. Grace doesn't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball. But what is now clear, and this is irrefutable, is that now we have whistleblower after whistleblower, and Eric Weinstein is a whistleblower, saying, I was within the system, I know the system, I was at the highest levels of the system. There is now a globalist world order that is being constructed. And they now control so-called democracies around the world. Everything is fine as long as it's Tweedledoo and Tweedledum. They'll let us fight over abortion or gay marriage or something like that. That's okay. Who cares? So one leans a little right, one leans a little left. We don't care. But on the big issues, they have to toe the line. And if they don't toe the line, if you challenge the actual international order, then you will be destroyed. And they will do everything in their power to destroy you. That's why Robert F. Kennedy Jr., destroy him. Tulsi Gabbard, destroy him. Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, destroy her. Donald Trump, destroy him. J.D. Vance, destroy him. Whether you go down into the media, Tucker Carlson, destroy him. Jeff Kuhner, destroy me. That's how the game is played. There's not supposed to be real choice. As he put it, we're not supposed to have real freedom. It's who they allow us to choose. Because in the end, the game is rigged. The house never loses, in casino terms. In the end, they must always win. And that's why Eric Weinstein is saying, look, I'll be honest with you. I don't think they're just going to let him in. Even if this guy wins the election, they'll find some way to block him. And the consequences be damned. So I want to ask you, it's one of the most important poll questions I've ever asked in my long career now in radio. Okay, and I hope much longer career. I hope this goes on for a lot longer. But anyway, in my long career in radio and in the media, it's been one of my most important questions I've ever asked. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do you believe the election is cooked? Do you believe that this election on November 5th, is it cooked? Have they already predetermined the winner? In other words, do you think the Democrats will steal it? That the oligarchs and the globalists, as Weinstein is insinuating, will steal it? Is it cooked? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. You can also vote via X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word. This is a brilliant, brilliant text from 781. I'm going to read it on the other side, and then I want to take all of your calls. My question now to you. Tomorrow's the big debate. Does it even matter? 8:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, coming up in exactly 40 minutes, I've got a very special guest that I'm going to be interviewing. Trust me, she is a warning to all of us about what will happen should Kamala win in November. She is warning everybody of the consequences. You've got to hear this interview. Trust me. Okay, 617. Jeff, I heard that interview with Eric Weinstein. In fact, I listened to it twice this weekend. It's a chilling interview, but it tells you exactly what's going on. Okay, very, very quick. This is from 802. Jeff, I'd like to reinforce Mark's call from New Hampshire and the point that he was making by asking, when taking a stand against pure tyranny, by penning and signing the Declaration of Independence, what were the three things that our founding fathers pledged to each other and to the Republic? They pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. It was the hill they were willing to die on. My question is this. As patriotic citizens, what are we willing to pledge to save our republic? And what hill are we willing to die on? I'm not even asking for a sacred pledge. I'm not even asking to die on any hill. I'm just asking you to vote and bring family and bring friends and volunteer in any way, shape, or form, because this is the most important election in our lifetime. And this is now at a crossroads for our country and our future. So I'm not even asking you to imitate the great founding fathers. I'm just asking you to get up off your rear end and vote and maybe volunteer and bring some people with you. That's all I'm asking. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Very good. Very good. How are you, Mark?
All right. You faked me out twice this morning with two Marks from New Hampshire. I was ready to pick up my phone, and you got me twice. But anyway, Jeff, if Judge Moran is doing this according to your wife Grace's theory, okay? But you know what? I'm going to be totally honest with you, Jeff. I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be just as pissed off as if they put him in prison. Because if they're doing this because they already know it's rigged and stolen, you know what? I'm going to stand with one of those Marks from New Hampshire side by side. And I will fight, and I will get dirty if I have to. And I know, Jeff, the FBI and the CIA and the DOJ, I know they're probably listening to us. They know they're listening to your show. Well, I got 3 letters for them, Jeff. KMA. Kiss my ass.
Mark, I'm just curious. Look, and I know you're not just blowing smoke. I know you, and look, you're serious. You're a serious person. You're serious as a heart attack. You're a real patriot, Mark. I'm not stroking your ego. I'm just telling you the truth. But not everyone's you. I'm not trying to incite people. I just want to get an understanding. I'm not trying to, hey, who's got the guts to stand up? That's not my intention at all. Mark, most people in Kuhner country, the texts that I'm getting, the emails that I'm getting, they think most people are all bark and no bite. That, in other words, what Mark said, yeah, he'll be really angry, you'll be really angry, you're willing to go to the streets if need be, but that most Americans, for good or for ill, even if they steal it, even if they blatantly put Trump in jail, are going to huff, they're going to puff, they're going to be angry, but in the end, they're going to sit on their hands and do nothing. Do you agree with that assessment? Or do you think it will fundamentally break something in our country and lead to an explosion that the regime just is not counting on?
Well, Jeff, I believe the latter. I think we will fundamentally break. We will fundamentally lose our collective freaking minds, okay? But you know what this is going to lead to, Jeff? The same thing that happened 4 years ago, okay? What's going to happen is this. If Kamala Harris wins the election, because as we all know it's rigged and stolen, it's going to get challenged again on certification day by Congress. It's going to be signed by senators, and don't put it past the Democrats to pull another staged January 6th insurrection. You know what I'm saying, Jeff?
Interesting. Mark, as always, thank you very, very much for that call. I hear what you're saying, Mark. I'm just saying Kamala is a much harder sell than Joe Biden in 2020. Joe Biden was a demented buffoon. Please. And they stole the election. No question. But she's bad. I mean, she's really bad. And when you even have the New York Times coming out with polls saying she's losing to Trump. Now, again, that's why I say tomorrow's debate it's one of the most important consequential debates. Because if Trump can really decisively beat her, I mean, really expose her, it's going to be very hard to pull off that steal. Very hard. someone who's running from the media, running from interviews, is always giving word salad after word salad, keeps contradicting herself, reversing herself, flip-flopping, is openly mocked and laughed at by people like Vladimir Putin. I mean, he can't even hide his disdain and derision. And by the way, that should be one of the things that scares us the most. Seriously, as an if you're interested in world peace, okay, but never as an American, you got to see his interview in Russia when he's asked about her. I've never seen a world leader demonstrate such naked, obvious contempt for a potential president of the United States. He's practically licking his chops. Like you can tell that the Russians and people around Putin are drinking vodka and calling her every nasty name in the book. And they're like, I can't believe the Americans would vote for somebody that stupid. Dmitry, I can't believe it. The Russian media is now saying that if Kamala Harris wins or really is installed in November, that Putin's greatest legacy will he have reversed Russia's defeat in the Cold War. That she will destroy America within, and that Putin will destroy her in Ukraine. And their words, not mine. Russia will have snatched victory from the jaws of defeat in the Cold War. Because they go, you elect Kamala, America implodes within. It no longer is a serious world power. And we will roll her in Ukraine, and we're going to roll her all over the world. China will roll her. Iran will roll her. Everybody's going to freaking roll her. They can't believe that we are potentially on the verge of doing this. It's like watching your enemy who defeated you, humiliated you, take a loaded gun and put it right in your mouth and then cock it. And you're like, they're going to pull a trigger? Are you serious? That's what a vote for Kamala Harris is. 617-266-6868. And that's why I'm praying that tomorrow Trump cleans her clock. I mean, beats her good, like a drum. So then there's no plausible pretext for the steal in November. Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Good day.
Linda, how are you?
I've been listening. I've been listening to the calls, and the thing is, for the past few months, everybody's been saying, what a loser, what a communist, single-digit IQ, and then she's got Tampon Tim there. But I think we need to step back and just push them aside. We have lost our Department of Justice. FBI, our Secret Service, CIA, I think, has been an independent regime for decades. And it doesn't make any difference. We have to start getting our law books in order and getting back to the Constitution. The other thing I wish to point out that Kamala keeps talking about are guns and the kids being killed about guns. I don't know why she's so worried about that when over 100,000 kids died of fentanyl. I mean, she's dumb to the point of ridiculousness. But it can only be gotten away with by the support of the FBI and other agencies. Remember, they've never released any of the Epstein videos. They've not released any of the out in California, the rapper Diddy's videos. Why? I mean, I could understand they might have to be blurred out quite a bit. But why hasn't anybody seen them? Have even our senators and legislators seen them? One of the way that our legal system is functioning now is with these different politicians. They find out things and have things on them. They threaten to let it be exposed. Now, before Trump left office, he got some files from the FBI and sort of left them about. One of the things that got exposed was an individual in D.C. who had been involved with an underage girl who was a friend of his daughter's. Ultimately, she committed suicide, and it was stated it was just a hoax, a political sabotage. According to the FBI leaked document left laying around, it was true. Why is the FBI covering up? Same thing with
I'll tell you why. No, Linda, I mean, look, this is what Trump now is going to face when he wins in November. The FBI is a completely corrupt, compromised, co-opted institution. It serves the oligarchs. It serves the swamp. It essentially serves the Democratic Party. That's what it's there for now. It's not impartial. It's not fair and objective. It's not independent. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's really, and I'm choosing my words carefully, it's become an American version of a modern-day Gestapo. It's not there to find solutions to problems or arrest real criminals. It's there to cover up the criminals of the regime. That's its goal. That's its purpose. So that's why the FBI, I think the whole thing has to be demolished. I think it's got to be abolished and rebuilt from the ground up. Because I think it's hopelessly compromised and hopelessly corrupt. And the same goes for the CIA, and the same goes for the NSA, and I could go on and on with so many other agencies. Now, let me tell you what is the Democrats' biggest weapon. This is their big weapon. The media. The media is their Praetorian Guard. That is their Berlin Wall. The media protects Harris. The media has protected Joe Biden. The media protected Obama. And the media is the one that is propagandizing. That's the word. Propagandizing the American people against Trump. It is lie after lie after lie after lie. And it's there to brainwash, to indoctrinate, to inflame. To the point that 47% of the American people hate Trump with a passion. And when you ask them why, they can't give you a concrete reason. Or it's based on some lie. Now, until we smash this media monopoly, this media industrial complex, which is the mouthpiece for the military industrial complex. The two are hand in glove. You can't destroy one without destroying the other. We are always going to be facing incredible odds to seize back power from these gangsters and from these criminals. And look what they did about Hunter Biden's laptop. Look what they did. It's all come out. They knew it was all true. They knew it exposed all the crimes of the Biden crime family. It's all there on the laptop. And yet 51 leading intelligence officials, former directors of the CIA, our top intelligence officials from Brennan to Clapper to Mike Morrell to Mike Hayden these were Republicans and Democrats. Oh, it's Russian disinformation. It's a lie. It's a Russian misinformation trap. And of course they knew it was garbage. And to show you how incestuous the relationship is, Dana Bash of CNN, her ex-husband, Jeremy Bash, was one of the 51 who signed the letter. So the media marry those in the deep state, and the deep state marry those in the media. They're literally sleeping together. Like, they're sleeping together. They're married together. That's what Trump is facing. That's what we're facing. So, you see, you know that she lied about never working at McDonald's, Kamala. Most Americans don't. You know that she slept her way to the top. Most Americans don't know. You know that she wants to ban fracking. Most Americans don't. You know that she wants to abolish ICE. Most Americans don't know. Because the media constantly covers up and lies for her. And now, think of this. This is now what they're trying to sell us. She was no longer the border czar. They've taken 3.5 years right down a memory hole with a straight face. She's no longer the border czar. She was never the border czar. Now they're trying to portray, like I said, it's Kamala the movie. She was never part of the Biden administration. She's an agent of change. She's an outsider. She wants to turn the page. What do you mean turn the page? She was in power for the last 3.5 years. Now, if they can sell you this, then they can sell you anything. I mean, literally anything. Anything. Over the weekend, her pathetic campaign tried to blame Donald Trump for the debacle in Afghanistan, that this was all Trump's fault. I'm like, how could it be his fault? It took place 7 months after he left office. 7 months. We know Kamala Harris bragged. It was reported repeatedly. It's like George Orwell's 1984. Where this memory hole. She said, I was the last one who left the room. I made the decision with Joe. We were co-presidents. Afghanistan was our decision. And it was apparently a stunning success. Biden said it was a stunning success. She said it was a stunning success. Now it was a disastrous failure, but it's Trump's fault. Now, only a low information voter, only someone, I'm serious, a Bill in Sudbury, a Ben in North Andover, a Chris or Frank in Gloucester, I'm talking, you don't get dumber than this. Oh, they swallow it hook, line, and sinker. That's what the media shovels out now every single day. Here, big scandal on Thursday and Friday. J.D. Vance, in the wake of the school shooting in Georgia, said, quote, it is a shame and a tragedy that these school shootings have become a fact of life. And we need now to have better security in schools. He wants more resource officers and on and on and on. The Associated Press came out with a deliberately fake and false headline saying Vance now says it's just a fact of life. In other words, he's downplaying it. He thinks it's no big deal. Suddenly he's more, it's like, hey, 4 people are shot, 2 kids, 2 teachers, 9 others are in the hospital. No big deal. It's a fact of life. It's like breathing. Okay? It's like the sun rising. It's, what are you talking about? This went on. Over 2 million people saw the headline. MSNBC reported, CNN reported, all the major networks. J.D. Vance is really just, he's completely indifferent to the suffering in Georgia. They took his words. They didn't just twist it, distort, manipulate it. They literally took his words and then they inserted stuff he never said. He said white, they say black. He said black, they say white. AP had to withdraw the headline and retract their mistake, but the damage was done. That's not media. This is Goebbels style or Soviet style propaganda. They lied about J.D. Vance. They smeared J.D. Vance. They completely took what he said deliberately out of context to damage J.D. Vance. 9:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, trust me, in about 10 minutes at 9:30-ish, it's an interview, exclusive newsmaker interview you don't want to miss. This woman is warning us of what is coming to America should Kamala win in November. Dave in Rockport. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Dave?
Pretty good. This is kind of more relevant for this morning, but it's still relevant now. On Friday morning, early Friday morning, Elise Stefanik sent a memo to the New York Commission of Judicial Contact outlining a donation that was given to, or not a donation, but a hiring from Harris to hire his daughter for services, quote unquote, after Biden had resigned and she took over as the candidate on her own. And that also was filed at 10 Friday morning. In the afternoon, the judge came out and decided to postpone his sentence. And Stefanik also gives the dates, what happened, how much money, when, and even cites the chapter and verse of the laws that were broken and that Merchant should be recused or thrown out the case or his legal credentials be tossed out. And that was posted on the Gateway Pundit Friday, but the memo was actually issued early in the morning, and all of a sudden they're backtracking. So I think might put a little calmness in Grace in her theory that she came up with the other night, that they think it's in the bag. I don't know if it's that. I think if his judicial credentials are threatened, seriously threatened, with serious evidence that cannot be refuted, she cites the chapter and page of the SEC form that they filled in the fee for hiring Authentic, which is his daughter's firm, if you want to call it that, which probably means he was getting kickbacks from that whole thing all along.
Oh, no question. There's no question. No, Dave, look, you hit the nail right on the head. Judge Merchant's daughter is a Democratic and a well-paid Democratic activist. And she works for the Harris campaign. And she has been helping the Harris campaign and her lobbyist friends raise millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars, off of her father putting Trump in jail. So the Merchant family is getting filthy rich off of this trial. This screams conflict of interest. In fact, Elise Stefanik is not 100. She's 1,000% correct. I can't tell you how many rules, how many laws, how many regulations this breaks. He should be disrobed. He should be kicked off the bench. He has a direct financial stake, and his family has a direct financial stake in putting Donald Trump in jail. Now, I'm telling you, they do this in Venezuela. They do this in China. They do this in Madrasha. They do this all across Eastern Europe. They do it in Cuba, in banana republics, third world banana republics. Hey, this is how people get rich. You abuse your power, and you make sure that your family lines their pockets. This is not supposed to happen in America. It is. Now, we're going to find out. I mean, look, the next 2 months will decide everything. I respectfully disagree with my wife. Now, I say respectfully because she's often been right, I've been wrong. To be fair, at times I've been right, She was wrong. She thought Hillary was going to win in 2016. She thought Trump had no chance. And I was like the first in the country to say Trump's going to win. So I'm just saying, she's not infallible. I'm not infallible. We're both human beings. But I think on this one, she's wrong. I understand where she's coming from. Look, you've got Eric Weinstein, for God's sake. I mean, he's one of the most powerful, influential, insightful people in the world. And he's saying they're just not going to let him back in. You understand? They're just not. So I understand. Believe me, I'm not naive. I believe the hand of God is now behind Trump. And there are moments like that where it happens in history, where it defines all logic, it defines all power, it defines all defies all expectations, it defies all control that a regime has. I think the people have decisively turned on this regime. And I believe Trump is going to win and pull off the greatest political comeback and really the greatest political miracle in American history. And tomorrow night, now that the sentencing has been postponed, tomorrow night it will be make or break for Kamala Harris. If Trump buries her, if he knocks her out tomorrow, the way he knocked out Joe Biden, this thing is over. They may try to steal it, but nobody will believe them. The regime is in crisis. Up next, you want to hear this interview. 9:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, my friends, I promise I'm going to get back. Phone lines are absolutely jammed. I'm going to get back to our blazing phone lines, but I want all of you to please listen to this very important interview. Tomorrow, as you know, is primary day up in New Hampshire. Many people in New Hampshire listen to the Kuhner Report, and they'll be voting tomorrow. Lily Tang Williams is a congressional candidate for the 2nd District in New Hampshire. She is a principled conservative. She is an America First Trump conservative. But above all, she is a survivor of communist China. She came from a family of illiterate working class parents, and she somehow, by the grace of God, survived Mao's communist regime in China. She is trying to warn not just the people in the 2nd Congressional District in New Hampshire, but all Americans across the entire country of what will happen in November should Kamala Harris win. And it is a warning I am telling you that everyone should take very, very seriously. So joining me now, it is my distinct honor and privilege to have Lily Tang Williams on the Kuhner Report. Full disclosure, she runs ads on WRKO. I don't care. Kelly Ayotte runs ads. I'm not supporting her. I don't care if you run an ad or not, but just for Federal Election Commission guidelines, I have to state that. I also have to state that she's running against 2 other Republican candidates in the primary, and they are also welcome to come on equal time, and I will give them as many minutes of airtime as I give Lily. Lily Tang Williams, welcome to the Kuhner Report, and I've got to ask you right out of the gate, why are you running to be the representative, the Republican nominee for the Congressional 2nd District in New Hampshire? Why should primary voters tomorrow vote for you?
Well, thank you for having me, Jeff. I'm running to save the American dream. I have 3 children born in this country. I come here 36 years ago. I become American citizen 30 years ago. I gave up my Chinese citizenship because I love this country. I embrace American ideals. And that means to me it's a freedom, free market capitalism, rule of law, meritocracy, and the family and free speech and faith. I say all that are under attack today. For a while now in my new country, I feel it's my mission to come out, to run, and to tell my stories, to all my citizens to say that, I have survived communism. I see there's so many similarities happening in our country. I'm very afraid that if we don't get activated, communist-minded people will take over our country. You already see what's happening in the past 4 years. And it is my duty, my new citizens' duty to come out to do this. And I have a great support from the grassroots. So I hope that tomorrow will be record turnout day for me.
Lily, I got to ask you, what is it about Kamala Harris? As you know, I've nicknamed her Comrade Kamala or Commie Harris, because I agree with you. I think she is a communist. I think she's hiding her radical left-wing policies. She's trying to present herself as a centrist or a moderate. She's the exact opposite. What is it in particular that scares you the most about Kamala Harris and her radical left-wing agenda?
I have followed her for a while now on X. I mean, she had a pinned video on the top. I don't know if she removed it, talking about equity. She wants to have equal outcomes. Everybody get to one place at the same time. That's the rhetoric and talking points I heard in communist China. We all have the same outcomes. We all get there at the same time. That is a communism. Without the government, use the government power and the force, how are you going to guarantee everybody the same outcome? Because everybody works differently. They have a different individual traits and a background and work ethics. It's un-American to promote this. And, I've been following her for a while. She's the one who bailed out the criminals during the riots, and she wanted to defund the police. Her voting record is most radical out of the U.S. Senate, and she got a very little vote in the presidential primary when she ran for president in New Hampshire. And now she's all of a sudden becoming the nominee without the New Hampshire's, Democrats' primary voters vote. I just feel like, there's lots of, mainstream media behind her, and she's using young people, get them to turn out for her, because young people, they are the most inexperienced and very naive, just like Mao used the young people called the Red Guards to do his cultural revolution and destroy China's 1,000 years old history and destroyed the traditional family values. So I'm really afraid that if they won, that would be the end of our constitutional republic I came here for.
We are talking with Lily Tang Williams. She is a Republican candidate for the 2nd Congressional District in New Hampshire. Let me say it right out. If I'm living in the 2nd Congressional District, I would vote for Lily Tang Williams. And I'm urging all of you, please vote. If you do live in her district, vote for this lady because she's the real deal. I've got to ask you, Lily, Mao implemented price controls. You know this better than I do. You lived it. You suffered under it. Kamala Harris says that she would impose price controls on food production, and on grocery stores. When this was tried under Mao, what happened?
Well, I was a starving child, and when the communists take over, they always control the food supply. They always control the prices. Because if they can control you, rely on government for food, then you basically become their slaves. We lived on food rationing coupons. Our family of 5 only had 2.8 pounds of pork, all the proteins, for 1 month. And I had to get up 4 a.m. in the morning, winter months, to stand in long line with the coupons to go get my family a bag of wheat flours and pork. And it was freezing cold in the winter. I had to jump up and down to keep myself warm. I was just a child. I come out absolutely destroyed her food price control rhetoric. It's a communist. People who never learn history, especially about how communists control food and everything production to get rid of private properties. They need to understand when they take over your food, your private property, and your family ownership of your children, and raise your kids, and your religious freedom, your free speech to say anything different, to dare ask questions, and your equal protection under the rule of law, all will be gone. And all the country survivors in this country, the immigrants come here legally, become American citizens, and embrace and live their American dream. They all can tell you that. I'm just that voice very loud because I have a big head on my head to warn people that. And of course, her VP is a communist too. He went to China with his students, bought lots of Chairman Mao's read books, and he was funded, supported, approved by China's United Front Department, funded by Chinese CCP to go there. This team is absolutely America's nightmare team to win the highest office in our land. So I hope people take my warnings and get into the history. I hope more and more reconciled, regular JFK Democrats will come out in record numbers to vote for Trump. Because regardless how you feel about him, we are hiring the highest office public servant for our country, for our people. We got to hire the right person to do that job.
Amen. Amen. We have been talking with Lily Tang Williams. She is a Republican candidate in the primary in New Hampshire. She'll be on the ballot tomorrow, primary day, in New Hampshire's congressional 2nd district. I urge all of you in New Hampshire, vote for her. You can go to lilytangwilliams.com to get more information. lilytangwilliams.com. Lily, best of luck, and thank you so much for coming on the Kuhner Report, and God bless you. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, let me just put a final bow on that interview with Lily Tang Williams. Again, she is running in New Hampshire's 2nd congressional district. Tomorrow is primary day in New Hampshire. She is absolutely feared by the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP will do anything to stop her from winning the primary, and of course then beating her Democrat opponent and going to Congress and getting a seat in Congress, because she will expose the infiltration of our government and our country by the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. And that is why they are doing everything in their power to try to stop and block and derail this woman. So if you want more information about her campaign, what she stands for, she is a Trump America First conservative all the way. Go to lilytangwilliams.com, Lily Tang, Tang, lilytangwilliams.com. In fact, she has a wonderful saying, which I was hoping we'd get to. We just didn't have enough time. But she says that the country she loves, she fears, is now becoming slowly the country she left. That the country she loves, America, is now slowly becoming the country she left. And this is her warning. Kamala wins. Kamala and Tim Walz, and she laid out Tim Walz in the interview, how many times he's gone to China, how he's a front for China, how he's an admirer, if you can believe it, of Mao Zedong, the greatest mass murderer in terms of numbers in the entire 20th century. If Kamala Harris wins, Communist China wins. 617-266-6868. Sean in the great state of Iowa. Thanks for holding, Sean, and welcome.
Hey, Jeffrey, how you doing this morning, buddy?
Very good. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing darn good. Except I'm probably going to piss a caller or two off here, and I don't mean to, but it's the truth. So
it's a free speech zone. That's what we're all about, Sean. So let her rip, my friend.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. First of all, I'm a little confused as to how the 2A militia is formed. I'd sure love to hear it from somebody that knows, and you probably do. But here's what I'm saying. I keep hearing about, you ask the question and the guy comes out and says, well, I've got toys in my safe, but the problem is everybody wants to talk about it and nobody wants to do anything about it, and they want somebody else to do something about it. And you know my feelings about this, Jeff. I'm not even going to go into it because I don't want to get cut off again, but I'm going to tell you what. Where are you going when you get them toys out? Because what's the answer? I'm with the guy all the way. All the way. I agree with him 1,000%. I agree with him. But where are we going with those things? So here's the deal. We have a legal route. It's called the 2A Amendment, okay, the Second Amendment, and it's a militia. And no, I don't believe it's the National Guard or anybody like that. It's us. But how does that – we don't have any leaders that are stepping up. I was hoping that Trump would have, when he got this election stole from him, I was hoping he'd bark this up because, I've said this before. It should have happened years ago, probably decades ago, that we should have took this country back, and now we're sitting here on our hands wondering who's going to start this thing, and I don't think it's going to start until they come for our guns or they do something mass, because they already have taken out some patriots right in their own homes, and they're elderly even. So what are we going to do? What's the answer?
Sean, look, let me give you my honest opinion, like I'm in the confessional. And of course you can agree or disagree. I think Trump's going to win. I'm looking at all the tea leaves. He's got all the energy, all the momentum. I honestly believe this. I think he's got the hand of God behind him. And that's why he's now the most, I think, irresistible, invincible force on earth. There's an aura about him. There's a logic behind his candidacy. He reminds me of Lech Walesa. He reminds me of Nelson Mandela. They should not win, but they do win. History is on his side. I could be wrong, but that's my reading of the situation. So to be honest, I think once he wins, this changes a lot. Fundamentally, it changes a lot. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they do steal it. Or more likely, that they don't inaugurate him. They don't certify his election, which means they steal the presidency. Okay? He wins the election, but they won't seat him. I think what's going to happen is this, Sean. I don't think it's going to be 1861 for a whole host of reasons. But let me tell you what I think is going to happen. Mark my words. I think Iowa is going to say to hell with it. Like the state that you're in now. I think Iowa, through the state legislature, through people like you, through protests on the street, are going to say, we don't recognize Kamala Harris. We don't recognize the authority and sovereignty of this federal government. The states form the union. The states can unform the union. And I think what you're going to start to see are secessionists. I don't want this to happen, but I think that's going to be the logic. Where Iowa's going to go, Idaho's going to go, North, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Florida, Texas. In other words, they're playing with serious fire. That's why my advice to the Democrats, you're going to lose in November. You have no one to blame but yourselves. Accept the election results and move on. Trust me, move on.